Supergirl Season 2, Episode 15, Exodus. Really liked this episode. I was surprised that it didn't focus as much on Alex as I thought it did. It was actually a nice even split down the middle between Alex's story and Kara's story, but I still really enjoyed the episode. I think they did some great stuff with Cadmus rounding up the aliens at the beginning of this episode, and we see how that starts to play out. And they go through, and of course, they end up getting, one of the few alien characters that we actually know. And they attack the bar, they take some of the aliens. It seemed like they only took one out of that entire place. They only got the one character that we knew, but that's a TV thing. And so I love the way they go about this story. I thought it was really fun watching this kind of chaos unfold. It was like they have this registry of all the aliens. They know where everyone is. They know, kind of like the alien that Alex and Maggie end up saving. I was like, they know, all the registration info. Like, all right, well, we just find this car and we figure out where he kind of frequents. Boom, we can find this alien. And I like that idea where they had, the villains had this great source of information, and the heroes couldn't really do much to stop them. They have kind of this drive to be like, all right, well, let's round up all the aliens. They can't really put that information out there, and that's kind of why I was excited by what they did with the other half of this story, outside of what Alex was dealing with, is what Kara was dealing with. And it was her trying to do her journalist job and get the news out there, like, hey, this is really happening, so anyone who's an alien needs to watch out, or friends of aliens, some people might be coming after you, like, just be careful. And I love the way that played out. It really surprised me, honestly. It was just a simple thing, because that was kind of like every other episode, where it's like Kara had to, figure out how in the world do I get, get Snapper to, like, realize this is a true story. Like, I need to find some extra source of information or something like that. And I liked the way it played out. I was really surprised that it went to the point where, she's convinced, which personally I thought it was a good job. I wasn't thinking either, apparently, but I'm also not I'm not in, like, the journalist community where it's like that. It's illegal to do that, where you have resources from, the company that you work for, and you utilize some of those resources for your own personal publication, I guess. And I was just like, wow, that didn't really occur to me when the idea first popped up. I was like, oh, that's just a good idea, because it's like you're just warning people, that's it. And then it gets to kind of the legal side of things, and it's like, oh, I guess that is bad. So I was really surprised that Kara got fired by the end of this episode. I thought they were just going to be mad at first, and then he went into, like, the legal stuff, and I was like, oh, she has to be fired. This isn't like, I'm mad at you, so I fired you, but legally it's just like, well, she told a story on a blog. But once he explained it, I was like, no, that makes a lot more sense than him just being mad at her. So I don't know where they're headed with that. I mean, the blog thing, it was funny that they did the blog, because it made me think of more recent stuff with Superman, where he actually started a blog. So I don't know if that was the inspiration for this, her doing a blog, or if that's even going to continue beyond this episode, or if she's going to switch to, a new job. But I thought it was cool. It was a nice surprise, because I just wasn't expecting it. I actually like the reporter stuff that they do with her character, probably because Snapper is such hard ass of a boss. It's actually really entertaining to watch, where she has this information, but she can't just be like, yeah, I'm Supergirl, so, I fought this person, and that's how I know this. She always has to kind of play both sides. Like, well, I'll tell Supergirl to come in, and then even ask Supergirl, she can't say my source is, like, my own father coming in and betraying me and my sister, that sort of deal. So I like the way they did it in this episode, and sadly, it ends with her getting fired. So I'm actually excited to see where they take that. I don't think that'll be the focus, the next episode, based on the promo, but I'm excited to see where they take that for her character, and, if they keep her in the kind of on the journalist path, I should say. Will she stick with the blog thing, or will she try to get her job back? Will she end up going somewhere else if there's, like, a lesser news source, or not a lesser news source, but just not as popular, which I guess in a sense is lesser. So maybe she'll end up with someone else. But I am looking forward to what they're gonna do with that, because that's kind of the other half of her character. If she's not Kara, she's Supergirl with the DEO, and it's been a lot of that lately. This, I think, was the first episode to really focus on her as Kara, I feel like, in a while, with it at least being a really important story. The other ones is like, okay, yeah, she talks with Lena Luthor, or she has, like, a little story, and it tends to be a part of it, but this felt, like, actually important. The other times, it's just like, yeah, it's just Kara doing her thing, like, she's doing another story, and it's just kind of the same thing, it's just her doing another story. And this was the first time it felt like a really big deal. So I'm excited to see where they go with that. Alex's side of the story I thought was really well done, and her kind of just going through trying to figure out, do I help my father? Is he trying to help us? What is, the real answer here? And I love that. And a really great scene was when John was posing as her dad. I love that. I thought that was a great moment. And, she's freaking out. It's like, what do I decide? And she decides to choose her father. And she's like, okay. And as soon as she says that, he just instantly morphs back to himself. And, excuse me, it was a good scene. And, she was freaking out like, you were testing me. And he's like, I feel like your judgment is a bit compromised. So, you're suspended for now. Like, I can't have you near, such a dangerous situation and have, your judgment be compromised. So I thought that was a great moment. Of course, Kara agrees, but Alex, of course, has a lady to help her out. So, they start off by saving the one alien who was in the car, and they beat up the cop, they beat up the other, random Cadmus guys, and they're able to get the information on where Cadmus is hiding. And so Alex, she goes on her own, like, just a one-woman army, and it was really cool. She had a really cool scene, and my favorite part of this whole episode was honestly the part where she got captured, and she revealed that she had those bombs set up. That was my favorite scene in the whole episode, because her bluff got called twice, and she was not effing around at all. So she was like, I came in here, I was prepared, so she pulls out the switch for the bombs, and it's like, oh, you're bluffing. It's like, oh. And she pushes it without any hesitation. She pushed it and then was like, all right, if I release this, then the second half of the bombs are going to go off. And fortunately, that kind of leads to the part where her dad ends up, joining her. So it was good to see that. Although he ends up vanishing, which I was really surprised by. So I'm just assuming that Cyborg Superman took him. Maybe I looked away for a second. I know he walked over to where he knocked him off at, but I didn't see him actually pick him up or anything. So I was surprised that they didn't find Jeremiah after all the chaos happened. But he ends up helping her out. Ultimately, he chooses the side of his daughters. And once they find out that there is no actual way to stop it, she gets called again. It's like, the only way to do it is, to let that switch go and set off the rest of the bombs. And it was just this smug look like, this little girl isn't going to do anything. And it was just like, all right. And she just lets it go and the bombs go off. And I was like, that was super cool. She had no hesitation for, either step of setting off those bombs, even though she was in the building and it could have potentially killed her. But I really liked that. I thought that was a really good moment. Of course, she ends up going to the ship while Jeremiah ends up fighting against Cyborg Superman. And, they have their kind of back and forth. And, of course, laser beams beat humans. So, Jeremiah lost. And now we'll have to see what happens with him. But Alex ends up on the ship. She lets everybody free. They, of course, still end up getting trapped because the door comes down because it reaches, I think it was 20 seconds or something. So it automatically locked down the ship for whatever reason. And so they're all freaking out because it's like, what do I do? There's no way in the world that I can stop this ship. And even though, she's in contact with Wynn, Kara has to stop the ship. And fortunately, she does. But I gotta be honest, I would have loved it if it didn't work and the ship went into light speed and they lost all those people for a couple of episodes. That would have been amazing to me. But that would have been a bit crazy, especially with Alex being there. If it was just Wynn's girlfriend, that would be one thing because she's not as big of a character. It would just be a cool arc for Wynn. But if they did that with Alex, that would have been unbelievable to see where they went after that. But it mostly would have just been they're missing for a little bit. But it was cool that she was able to save everybody, and ultimately everything works out fine, except, when Kara goes back to work as Kara, and then she's fired. So, really, really good episode. I liked just how tense it was, especially, Alex's side is what I enjoyed the most from this episode, but Kara's side definitely got better as it went on, because she's like, how do I make sure this happens? And with it being the alien registration for all aliens, it's a really big deal to get this information out there. And even without that source, that's ultimately what led her to deciding to do the vlog, or do the blog. And she had to be convinced twice, hey, do you feel that it's right, after she decided to type it all up. And it's like, if you do, then this is what you should do. Go ahead, and Monel convinces her to do it. So I'm excited to see where they go with her. But I love what they did with Alex in this episode. It was really nice. Can't wait to see what happens with Jeremiah. They also make a reference to him being Superman. It was I forgot exactly what the first half of the line was, but it ended with, you're the only Superman we need now. And I was like, oh, that's a funny little reference. But really good episode. Of course, the actual ending to this episode leads into what I've been waiting for. I think what a lot of people have been waiting for quite some time, and that is Mon-El and I would assume his parents at the end of this episode, and that's why they're looking for him. And we do find out from the promo, which I don't know if this was a big deal or not for some people. For me, it was just cool to have the answer, even though it's right in the promo. We do officially now know that he is the Prince of Daxam, and I mentioned that a couple of times. Like, maybe he lied. Maybe the story was he was actually the prince, and it was reversed. And instead of him trying to save the prince or whatever, someone did the opposite, that sort of thing. So, I don't know. Or maybe he just lied in general, and he just took off. Like, it's really hard to say with the way his character started off in the show. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like an absolute lie, So I'm looking forward to what answers we're gonna get. We get to meet his mother. We get to meet his father, who was Beastmaster. Every time I see him, I just think of Beastmaster. And he was in that show Andromeda as well. But I never remember that actor's name. But every time I see him, I'm just like Beastmaster. That's all I think. But we get to see his mother. We get to see his father. His mother looks super familiar. I believe she was in something that was Superman related before, so I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that was I think she was Lois from Lois and Clark with Dean Cain. I think that was her. I think that's who the mother was. And I'm like, she looks so familiar. I think that's who that was. So we have now Lois and Clark from Lois and Clark. But I'm excited. I can't wait to see what they do with this next episode. What truths we really get about Mon-El and what happened. Considering everything that happened with his character and his family still looking for him, it makes me wonder if he just took off way before the planet even fell apart, and he just happened to get caught up in the storm as everything was happening. Like, he fell, just before Krypton blew up. So, I'm curious how it's going to play out, what the truth is really going to be, and we'll see how that plays out between Mon-El and Kara. So, probably won't be too good, but I'm sure they'll find some way to make it work. At least I hope they do, because I've said this a million times already, but I would really hate for it to be like another relationship, and then it's just like, yeah, they ended it like 5 episodes in. It's like, what was the point to begin with then? So I hope that's not the case and they're able to work through it, but super excited for this next episode. Of course, though, would love to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts, and I definitely want to know how you guys felt about Alex's journey in this episode. Actually, both of them. I mean, both Alex and Kara went through some interesting stuff in this. Kara, of course, being fired and what change is going to come from that. And Alex just in general having this crazy journey to figure out whether or not her father is truly good or evil. So we'll love to know what you thought about both their journeys, actually, in this episode. And, of course, what you thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.